Okay, guys, look. Instead of writing Artemis Fowl on the whiteboard, just hold on. I wrote Artemis Fowl on the whiteboard. Cause the name of the channel is Carter. Get it? Okay, so the long-delayed Artemis Fowl skipped right over theaters and landed right on Disney+. And to be completely honest, I was not excited for this. I never read the book, and I did not like the trailers. But the only glimmer of hope I had for this movie is that it was directed by Kenneth Branagh. He directed the first Thor, which I really liked. But to be fair, his latest film, Murder on the Orient Express, was really bad in my opinion. I'm ashamed I even own you, you stupid movie. Some stupid critic called it spectacular on the front. Spectacular? More like... bad movie. Got him. Yeah, so I was not excited, but I sat down and watched Artemis Fowl, and I can tell you one thing. I know why it skipped theaters now. Because this movie is really, really bad. And a huge misfire from Disney. I cannot wrap my brain around the fact that they spent over $100 million on a movie this terrible, and I mean terrible. Now, I know so many people are hating on this movie, and I wish I could be the one to come up here and tell you, no, it's really good. But I can't, because it's not really good, it's terrible. There is barely anything to like about this movie. Wait a minute, did I just do a bear pun? Dang it, I can't stop doing them ever since I did my We Bare Bears the movie review. Okay, so the biggest problem with Artemis Fowl, in my opinion, is the protagonist, and Artemis Fowl himself. He is one of the most unlikable protagonists I've ever seen. The character sometimes even acts like a villain because he's just so stoic and emotionless and rude and kind of a brat. You just don't like him, and he never does anything that would make you like him. Also, the movie has a side plot, which is actually more interesting than the main plot of the movie, and it basically follows this fairy named Holly, I think, and she is actually a lot more likable than our main protagonist, and she actually gets a save the cat moment. Now, if you don't know what a save the cat moment is, it's basically a term coined by Blake Snyder for screenwriting, and it's when you give your character a moment to do a good deed or to do something good, so that way we care about them. And this fairy girl gets a save the cat moment when she stops this troll and heals a little girl. So now that we've seen her do that, we automatically care about her a little more. So they gave the save the cat moment to this fairy, but when she goes to Artemis's house, he captures her in a cage, and he circles the cage all rude and emotionless. And because they gave the save the cat moment not to Artemis, but to the fairy, when the fairy gets captured by Artemis, our brains automatically go, well, Artemis is actually the villain, because he's the one who captured the good person. So the way they poorly structured this movie makes their own protagonist the villain of the story, because you always give the save the cat moment to a good guy, so they give it to the fairy. Artemis Fowl needed that save the cat moment, not the fairy, because without that save the cat moment for Artemis, he comes across as the villain of the story. It's just really bad screenwriting. So yeah, Artemis Fowl, the main protagonist of the film, never gets a moment to do something good, and they never give him a moment so we can actually care about him. He's just a really terrible protagonist. Another problem with this movie is the voiceover. And now, voiceover is not always bad, but it is in this movie. See, the big problem with this voiceover is they want to tell you that Artemis Fowl is smart. They want to tell you that the butler is strong, instead of actually showing you these things. So the movie starts and the narration is like, Artemis Fowl, he is very smart, he does smart things, and he's quite smart, and he's very smart, and he has a big brain, and he uses it to think smart things, because Artemis Fowl is smart. Okay, we get it, he's smart, stop telling us things. He's smart, we get it. And then they do voiceover for the butler, and it's like the same thing. He is strong, and his muscles are big, and he's small, he's strong, and he's so strong, and he can punch things very hard. It's like they just want to overemphasize Artemis is smart, and the butler is so strong, and it's like, stop telling us and emphasize it by showing it to us. Okay, let's actually look at some of the positives I wrote down. There's some good CGI, the fairy world looks pretty cool, and I like the design of the goblins. That's it. That's it! That's it! There is nothing good. You have to actually try. You have to try to find something good. And it's it's making me lose my mind because this movie is just so terrible. Okay, I do not have time to name every dumb thing in this movie, and judging by my analytics, I know most of you are already gone. But that means I need to rapid fire off a ton of dumb things about this movie. So I'm gonna make a Watch Mojo video. Hey guys, today we're going to be counting down the top 10 dumbest things from Artemis Fowl. Number 10. They use a giant as a battering ram. Why didn't they just let the giant go and let him rip down the doors himself instead of putting him on a cart and slamming his head into the door? I don't know, and I don't care. Number 9. After the fairy girl is captured, she wakes up in bed and springs up and goes, not happy. Why did she do that? Maybe she had a dream that she was in this movie. Number 8. The butler knows that they're in danger, so he goes out and gets his 12-year-old niece, brings her to the house that they know is in danger, and she's literally in the background of the entire movie and does absolutely nothing and barely has any lines. Why was she in this movie? I don't know. And once again, I don't care. Number 7. So they have this object that freezes time, and there's a guy on a boat, and him and his boat are falling off, but they're frozen in midair. Then the time machine starts to break and everything starts to fall. The fairy runs over, grabs the guy, and puts him back in the boat as the boat still falls. So he probably died anyway. She just put him in a falling boat. She stopped him from falling and put him in a falling boat. Number 6. Josh Gad uses his nose hairs to pick a lock. That's it. Number 5. At one point, Josh Gad reaches inside his mouth, pulls it down like he's in The Mask, and it's like this cartoon CGI big mouth, and then he proceeds to eat sand, and he wears his underwear, and so he can poop the sand out as he's making a tunnel underground by eating the sand and shooting it out of his butt. In my notes, when I wrote down that scene, I actually wrote beside it, I give up. You know what? I just can't even do this anymore. Okay, look, as a wannabe film director, I do not want to go around just trashing on movies, but this movie is so terrible, I can't help it. I mean, earlier, I said that I really didn't like Kenneth Branagh's Murder on the Orient Express. It was my least favorite film of 2017. And now, he's made Artemis Fowl, which is probably my least favorite film of 2020. Well, hopefully I'll at least like Kenneth Branagh's next film. What is his next film, by the way? His next film is Death on the Nile, the sequel to Murder on the Orient Express? Congratulations, Kenneth Branagh. I don't like you anymore. I'm sorry. So most people like their action to be filmed in wide shots so that way you can see everything that's going on. And there's this action scene on the front stairs of a mansion in Artemis Fowl, and it is shot in wides, but you still can't tell what's happening. Because the way they move the camera, they go up and down, and they zoom in and zoom out, and they side to side to side, and it's like spinning around them, and it is so hard to tell what is happening because you have to move your head at 90 miles an hour just to keep up with what's happening. They filmed it like a madman, just moving around the camera like this, and it was really hard to watch. To keep up with the action scene, you actually have to go like, okay, so he's gonna punch him, okay, the fairy's up there, and then the Artemis is gonna catch him, and then, okay, and then, now you're gonna hand him the bow, and then then he's gonna shoot the force field, and you can't keep up with it. So also, in the finale, Artemis Fowl goes to the fairy that he's had trapped, and he's like, we gotta work together to stop this. But because Artemis Fowl has not had any character arc or anything, it just feels so out of left field for his character, this stoic, emotionless character, to go like, we need to work together to stop the bad guys. And then later, after they work together, she's like, are we friends, Artemis Fowl? And he says something stupid like, forever friends. And I'm like, you guys aren't friends, you guys just met, and Artemis Fowl has been so emotionless and stoic for this entire movie. You don't buy that he would say something that cheesy or anything. Their friendship just feels so rushed. Also, in the third act of this movie, this giant is chasing them around the house, and you should feel like, oh, are they gonna make it? But you don't, because you don't care about these characters and there's no tension. If anything, you're actually pretty okay with the thought of Artemis Fowl getting eaten by the giant, because you don't even like him. If anything, you're rooting for the giant because you want the giant to eat them so we can just be done with this terrible movie. I said in my last video that every single movie review from now on, I'm going to give you an out-of-context quote from the movie. So here's the one from Artemis Fowl. When he was 10, he cloned a goat and named it Bruce. Sure, why not? Okay, I am so done talking about this movie. Artemis Fowl should really be called Fartimus Fowl. This movie is terrible. Don't watch it. I've lost my mind. And goodbye.